I just
looked him up.
read you this week. Jack Ryan, and many people have tweeted this. Do you know what they call Hunger Games in France? Battle Royale with cheese.
Now, one of the films that's out this week is called Into the Abyss, A Tale of Death, A Tale of Life. It's a new film from Werner Herzog. I spoke to him yesterday. Mark couldn't do it because you were busy being Elvis.
Flying back.
In the United States. So here's the conversation we had with I had with Werner Herzog. His film is Into the Abyss, a lot of which is filmed on death row in the United States. Here's a clip.
In worst case scenario, you know exactly what is going to happen on July 1st.
Yeah, the execution.
You will be transported to Huntsville.
Right, the Walls unit.
That's a death house.
Yes, sir.
And you will be checked by a medical examiner.
Right. They gotta treat me first and then kill me, huh?
Probably, yes. Yeah.
That's kind of crazy to think about, right? Yeah, I just can't allow myself to think. Like, I can't even picture myself laying on a gurney. But if it happens, I'll have to deal with it, huh?
And next, we speak to Werner Herzog, who has produced directed another film for us, Into the Abyss, A Tale of Death, A Tale of Life. Werner, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Obviously, Mark would like to be here. He sends his apologies. He's busy being Elvis in Sun
My
Studios.
salute to him and to Elvis.
Indeed. Explain the abyss into which we are speaking of in this film.
Well, in a way, it's a look into the dark recesses of the human soul. What is significant about this crime and what attracted me to the story is the utter senselessness of the crime, the nihilism of the crime. You have to imagine two teenage boys, 18, 19 years old, want to steal a car, the red Camaro. And they go to the house of a friend. The mother owns this car, and they, under the pretext to stay there overnight, they have trouble at home or whatever, they wanted to steal the keys at night and then take the car and take off. And they see that the mother is alone at home baking cookies. And they decide spontaneously it would be so much easier just to blast her away with a shotgun, which they do. Then they can't move the Camaro out of this gated community, and they wait for the son to return 2 hours later. Unfortunately, he has another kid with him in the car. They lure them under a pretext into the woods and shoot both of them just for getting the clicker to open the gate. So it can't get any more nihilistic. And both perpetrators were caught fairly soon. One of them sentenced to death, and he was executed 8 days after I filmed with him. And the other one got away with life in prison. But it was a different jury, a different trial.
You start the film by speaking to a pastor. There's a long interview with a pastor whose job it is to accompany the prisoners to their deaths.
Yes.
Can you just explain who he is and why you decided to start with his testimony?
You see, I don't have much footage for this film. Every single person that I met, I did not meet more than, let's say, 50 or 60 minutes in my entire life. All my experience with them was on camera. And he was very much under pressure, was hurrying and said, hurry, I have to be at the death house in 30 minutes. And he starts out really superficially like a TV preacher, very superficial, very phony, about the beauty of creation and the golf course and the dew in the grass in the morning, and he would switch off his cell phone and sometimes he would see squirrels or deer looking at him, and I thought, this is not going right. And I knew I have to look deep into his heart as well. And I break him open and I break him apart by something that somehow occurred to me spontaneously. I ask him, tell me about an encounter with a squirrel.
I wrote that down. Please explain an encounter with a squirrel. An astonishing question. Just explain what happened there.
Well, then all of a sudden he almost starts to cry. He's shaken to the core. And he speaks about that he had to stop his golf cart because he almost ran over 2 squirrels that were playfully crossing his path. And it reminds him that he has to be now with an inmate who will die in a few minutes. And he says, I cannot stop this procedure. I cannot halt it. And I'm going to be there. And I wish I could stop it, but I can't. It's a way just to stop this man in his phony delivery of platitudes. Stop the platitudes. Look into his heart. And you have to know the heart of men. That's what I keep saying. If you want to do a movie, and it's not only for documentaries, it's also for feature films. That's the way I work with an actor.
The interview that you conduct with Burkett's wife, he's the one that is involved in the crime, yes. But he's just in prison for the rest of his life. Explain where his wife comes from and where she fits in the story, because she's pretty extraordinary.
Yes, and kind of strange, because she was on his case as a paralegal for a support group. And she falls in love with Burkett, the inmate, for whom she works on his legal defense, and marries him. They were only able to marry with bulletproof glass in between, and both of them with a telephone receiver. But now that she's legally married, she can meet him without glass in between at a table with a guard present, sitting right with them at the table, and they're allowed to touch hands. And I ask her, how do you become pregnant? And she smiles, and I tell her, well, I have to speculate. There's such a thing like contraband entering prisons. Could it be that there's contraband the other way round? And she kind of nods and smiles, doesn't say yes, but it's exactly how it happened. And shortly after we filmed, a healthy baby boy was born. The film suddenly took a strange turn that I didn't expect. I only found out in the editing. The film all of a sudden is about life, 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 the glory of life, the urgency of life. And that's the last chapter, the urgency of life.
One of the victim's family says to you, some people deserve to die, and that would be her recipe for dealing with people like that. But you believe passionately at the heart of this film that that's not right.
Nobody deserves to die, and I stand my ground firmly. But we have to acknowledge Lisa Stotler, the woman who had lost her mother and her brother in these senseless murders. She witnesses the execution, and she tells credibly, and it's in the film, that it felt like a huge burden off her shoulders. She didn't really want to watch somebody to die. It's contrary to her feelings, but at the same time, she has some doubts, and I ask her, it sounds a little bit like Old Testament, the wrathful God, and don't you think that Jesus Christ would be an advocate of capital punishment? And she says, maybe not. So even she has some doubts, but we have to accept that she has an experience and a position that is different from ours. And she has her background, and I have my cultural and historical background, meaning the Nazi regime, a genocide of 6 million Jewish people, euthanasia. If you were retarded or insane, you were considered worthless by the state, and they would kill you off. Capital punishment in excess. So that's the simple reason why I'm not an advocate of capital punishment.
You say she laid down her burden. Was this film a burden? I mean, when you'd finished this, are you quite glad now to leave this behind
sure.
and move on?
In a way, yes, but it has some exhilarating moments. There's great humor in it also, and it's very much about life. But I'm glad when I leave any film that I can leave behind me. Always take it off your shoulders. Leave the print in a projection booth in a theater, and then finally, yes, I can take a good breath in now. But all of a sudden, before I even look, there's 5 other burglars, uninvited guests coming at me, swinging,
demanding attention.
Demanding attention, yes.
What do you want to do next? What would your heart desire?
There's 4, 5, 6 feature films, 1 or 2 documentaries, a book project. I run my film school. I will do some acting. I've just recently done some acting.
Bad guy.
Yes, I'm good as a villain. Whenever it comes to a part where I can be as vile and debased and hostile and dysfunctional as it gets, I'm pretty convincing.
Let's just we've got a listener's question actually, Werner, on this acting role you have from Nils Astrand. Very interested to hear how Werner acts opposite Tom Cruise in one shot. Can you explain more about the character he's playing and anything about him?
No, I am not supposed to talk about it. I'm under contract, and it's always good that a film comes out as a surprise. There are several villains, but I'm just the real badass bad guy.
Is this the Jack Reacher movie?
It is, yes.
Because most people's concerns about that is that Tom Cruise is too short. Because the only thing that we know about Jack Reacher for certain is that he's very, very tall.
I've never read the novels, but I think whoever had read the novel shouldn't be pedantic. Let Tom Cruise be Jack Reacher, and he will be credible. It doesn't matter how many inches he stands tall. How many feet, how many inches he is standing tall, doesn't matter at all. I think it's an inner attitude, and the man is very, very professional.
Sophie Watson, is there any current filmmaker whose work you admire?
Yes, dozens of them. However, I don't see many films, maybe 2-3 films a year, but if you ask me, one of them stands out, comes to mind, Abbas Kiarostami, an Iranian filmmaker. Try to see Where's the House of My Friend or Close Up. Wonderful filmmaker.
Last question. Catherine, listener. Herzog is well known for his inventive bets, which have resulted in him eating his own shoe and jumping into a cactus. Are there any forfeits which he is particularly glad he didn't have to do?
No, not really. If I do a bet, I better deliver. So you see, I'm not a man who is gonna back out.
Do you have any outstanding bets?
No.
No. Okay, it's probably a good thing.
But I would be the one who delivers.
Werner, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.